Well, good day.
How are you,
Welcome to the almost
sir?
end of January 2023.
Yeah, well, we proven to be not terribly on time with this broadcast, but we had to wait for good things to happen first.
Yeah, and we're still waiting, but that's okay.
And it's no more Happy New Year.
No, no. We've gone through the regular one and through Chinese, and
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. So we could actually recycle the Happy New Year thing one more
yes, for
time.
all Asian listeners, that would be Gong Hei Fa Choi.
Yeah, well, that's right, because you know that lingo. By the way, it's the year of the snake or
Rabbit.
the rabbit? That's it, the year of the rabbit, which is interesting because my astrological sign, or there would be a rabbit too.
Yeah, mine's not. Mine's a snake. So
Snakes eat rabbits. I don't like that.
rabbits can also run fast.
Yeah, well, anyhow, so it's been a busy 2 weeks since we last spoke.
Yeah, well, we've gone through some monsoons here, and we're anticipating another Arctic outflow for cold weather. So hopefully that doesn't mean snow, but you never know.
Well, we have here in the Midwest, we have snow. Today, we're expecting another 6 to 8 inches. For most of January was green, and then all of a sudden, Mother Nature decided no more fun for you guys.
You became used to this.
That's right. So it's really
Yeah.
not good. And all those guys who were in Davos who were going to change the climate weren't successful because
Well, with they're talking heads. It's kind of like watching sports. You watch the game, and then you have to listen to all the people reiterate the plays and the highlights. And I think that's all that Davos is a bunch of people getting together to hear themselves talk and pat themselves on the back, and who knows?
when we were doing the chat yesterday, preparing for today's thing, it's interesting. Since then, I'm less pumped up about this Davos thing than I was yesterday. Because you're right, they're just a bunch of talking heads to some extent, pontificating of how the rest of the world should be doing whatever, while they don't follow any of those rules.
Yeah, yeah. Like how many private jets went into Davos? At how many tons of carbon output there? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of hypocrisy among that crowd on that issue, and
It's got
also,
the
sorry.
parrot, right? Being like the parrot. Do as I say, not as I do.
Well, it's worse than that. These people are in very powerful positions and are able to by stealth to do stuff. Uh, say as I do as I say, but not as I do, and that's really part of the reason people get mad. And I think you know in the way they operate, these talking heads, they really, I think, throw stuff out to make people angry, uh, and then see what happens.
Well, there's that. Yeah, that was pretty well the old adage in most of the government businesses, right? Let's throw this Jello against the wall and we'll see what sticks, or let's run this up the flagpole and see who salutes. And yeah, it doesn't change much, I guess.
No.
It's kind of like we were talking also a bit yesterday about the new Canadian standard where you're only supposed to have 2 drinks of alcohol a week, and you know, I don't I don't know if that's a really proven fact. I don't know if it's something that they're just looking at and see whether people are going to stop consuming alcohol. I don't know. It came out of the blue, and like a lot of things do, they just pop up, and some
Well,
people take the gospel and some don't.
a lot of weird stuff comes out of the blue. The example of you can only do 2 drinks a week. or don't use gas stoves because you'll get asthma. Um, there's a place in the UK where they're making it illegal for you to leave certain parts of the town without getting permission. Yeah, this is this new thing about the 15-minute cities where they're dividing up the cities into quadrants. And if you go outside of your quadrant, you'll get taxed or you'll get a fine or what have you, because the trick is that under the new climate change thing, if you stay within your neighborhood, you'll cut down on your carbon footprint. And they're using the whole digital ID idea to follow you. Have you not seen that? It's a
No,
town called Oxford in the UK that actually has done that. And there's a couple of places in the States that are thinking about, keeping you off the road by basically fining you if you go outside of your boundaries. And it's part of the bigger picture. We're following you digitally. This is crazy stuff. I mean, again, this is totally doable because if you put enough cameras on the streets, they can follow you. I mean, most cities are completely, covered by video cameras. So
yeah.
your license plate ABC123, they can follow you. And then if you cross the mythical line that's out of your neighborhood because they decided that that's how you're going to cut down on people's use of carbon fueled vehicles. As
What
an
happens if
example.
it's an electric vehicle? Is it okay?
Well, this is part of this experiment of the 15-minute city. In our next, we'll go into that in our next
Yeah.
broadcast. But it just came up this week, and it's just nuts. That they're going to.
Yeah, I'm very surprised. To me, that almost smacks of communism, doesn't it? Where you need a special permit to go here and go there.
Internal passports, digital passport, and then there's
Mm.
this agreement between the European Union and the White House. In other words, the European Commission, by the way, nobody elects them, and the White House. So the US and the EU have come up with an AI agreement, artificial intelligence. They're going to work together to share various technical and social and economic impacts of AI, because this is how you can really make our lives so much easier, because everything will be linked into this AI thing, which, by the way, nobody really knows a whole lot about other than maybe we're going to become the Borg. I mean, this is insane. This happened. This week has been just that kind of a week with, just like you say, crazy stuff being tossed out, and let's see what the folks do about it. I mean, they're turning us into experiments here. And I don't know what you're going to do. Maybe you can do this in the urban centers with success. What you can do in the rural areas where there are no cameras all over the place. You know what I'm saying? This is really very, very dangerous stuff that they're messing about with.
Yeah, it is kind of scary, and I guess it kind of ties into what we were thinking about talking about with the what would happen if the people who proclaim that there are no illegals and there are no borders, what would happen if that came into fruition tomorrow? What
Well,
input? What impact would that have on this AI project, on the 15-minute city? Um, what would you do with the current border guards that would really be, in essence, done out of a job? I have no idea how many civil servants would be have to find a new job or be relocated or do something else. There's an awful lot of interesting things that could happen.
well, these are contrasting concepts, because if you're dealing with borders that are now artificially managed by an AI system, well, now, are you telling me that the sovereignty of your 15-minute city ends at this electronic fence? At the same time, the sovereignty of your country doesn't exist because there is no border.
Yeah.
It's you really have to try to understand, where these people are coming from. Like, how screwy is the mentality on this by these social engineers who don't want to have borders, but are quite happy to let the technocrats and the government marry up together with automation and artificial intelligence, and then tell you can't leave your community at a 15-minute block somewhere. Or next thing you know, they'll put them on highways and charge you because they can follow your vehicle and say, oh, you traveled 1,000 kilometers or whatever in the last month, so we're going to bill you now for because you're only allocated 250 kilometers. I mean, you can see where this is going.
I guess more so in Ontario than out here. There are the toll highways. You travel in the United States, there's quite a few places that have tolls on them. Is this just an extension of that?
Well, you could very easily flip that on it. These social engineers can say, oh no, this is for climate change reasons. We can control the number of people using fossil fuels. You asked the question, what about the electric cars? So you might have a two-tiered system where people driving EVs, you'll get to go further down that highway without having any penalty. But if you're driving an ICE vehicle, internal combustion engine, you're going to get fined because
Well, it's interesting that you even mentioned that. The local newspaper here had a letter written by an individual, open letter to the Prime Minister of the country, asking what his government was planning on doing for all these people that are driving electric cars and not paying road tax, because road tax is usually generated from your fossil fuel powers. So are these people getting a free ride because they're using the roads but not maintaining them? And the other side of this is the individual had written, it's usually only the rich that can afford these cars because they're not cheap. So are you actually now penalizing the poor people who can't afford an electric car? One, on taxes, and two is what this sounds like they're going to, is this 15-minute city or whatever it is. Does that mean we're going to still be working at home? Or most people I know, it takes more than 15 minutes and probably outside of their current little environment to get to their place of employment. So,
well, the concept of the 15-minute city is that everything that you'd ever wanted to have impacting on your life, from your job to your schools to your health center, is within 15 minutes. And those 15 minutes are walking distance, biking distance primarily, and an EV. I mean, they really have got this thing worked out. We're in a perverse way, the globalists want everyone to be localists.
Well, and again, this opens up another. What about all these universities that like to go out and recruit the best and the brightest to come to their campus? And what happens if the best and the brightest lives in Kenya and Harvard wants them? That's way more than 15 minutes outside their village. And,
well, I mean, this is really fraught with a lot of
esoteric nonsense.
Well, if you're going to silo everybody into these 15-minute cities, and I guess we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, so we'll research this a little more for the next broadcast, but basically you're dividing people into squares on a map. This is divisive is all hell as far as I'm concerned, because I can see this becoming, it's bad enough that these geniuses are dividing societies on ethnic, cultural, racial lines. Now you're going to start doing it in terms of geography. These silos, these 15-minute silos, are going to be incestuous little places that will have nothing in common with the next silo that might be 100 clicks down the road. I mean, this is going to really divide the urban from the suburban, from the rural.
Well, and I guess leading back into what we were talking about then is how does this, there are no illegals, there are no borders. That's going to throw a monkey wrench into their thought processes as well.
Well, they'll probably come up with some new terminology to describe it, because in the no border world that we were talking about earlier, if there's no borders, what do you call all the people who decide they want to go from this geographic area, that geographic, for whatever reason, without any hindrances? Okay, so the host community and the originating community, these communities may not have anything in common on a number of planes. How will this utopian world operate when there's going to be essentially a clash of cultures? There could be a clash of economic and social strata. When they've already messed around with what are the immigrants that are migrants, I should say, that are undocumented or whatever euphemism. Now we're talking about the unwelcome. We're talking people who aren't being welcome. They're not welcome migrants.
It gets to a certain extent. Right now, it's okay to have that kind of thought because there is some vetting that goes into place, right? They might be illegal, but somebody's talking to them. Somebody's finding out a little bit about them. Somebody's finding out whether they.
Well, no, there's an app for that.
But on the other side of that is, I know that the guy living next door to me isn't a criminal, right?
Or you might. Well, he might. He or she or whatever pronoun we're supposed to use now. You don't know. That's the whole point. And then if in the no borders world, who's in charge of the bigger picture? Let's just take North America as an example. The other day, I think we had talked about this yesterday. The American commentator on Fox, Tucker Carlson, had a piece on about maybe the U.S. should invade Canada to deal with the socialism that is rampant in the country. But if you have a no borders world, I mean, can we go from Canada then to what was Canada to that what was once the so-called United States? Just go over there. But I mean, it's silly to even talk about it, but it does raise the issue of what are these folks trying to achieve here? Because clearly there is a tendency at the moment not to manage traditional borders from a perspective of sovereignty, from a perspective apart from security, and that security seems to only apply to aviation, because they get all twisted into various pretzel shapes dealing with the aviation security. So you're flying hoops and loops, but if you're walking across some border,
and hopefully not. I have a hard time getting my head wrapped around it. That it's kind of like the NIMBYs, not in my backyard, and it's okay for these people to come in and settle in urban ghettos. I don't, and that's okay, but I might have a problem if all of a sudden that urban ghetto was expanded out to include my backyard. Maybe I won't like that. I guess the question, like some of these rich politicians and the like, probably live at gated communities, probably have their own little security things, and if you happen to not conform to their standards, you don't get in past the gate. Well, if there are no borders, then maybe they have to take down their gates. Maybe
well, this
24 Sussex Drive won't have a gate and police around it anymore.
Or around Buckingham Palace or the White House or what have you. No, it's such a difficult concept to wrap your head around, because if all of the accoutrements of a 21st century society, civil society, are removed because everyone's going to be inclusive. What is that? Inclusive to what? Inclusive to poverty, inclusive to war, inclusive to poverty. Like, what are we talking about here? It just, this last couple of weeks, it just makes you wonder that is maybe, just maybe, some of this stuff is coming up now because they're running out of, they're maybe recognizing they're running out of runway here on this woke nonsense. That woman who ran New Zealand, who just decided that suddenly she wants to spend more time with her family, and get married out of the clear blue sky, who has been the poster child for woke politics and environmental
and
policies.
on the other side of that, the work-life balance and blah blah blah. Good for her for recognizing it, if that was really what was the driving force, or not, as the case may be. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe she is one of the smarter individuals who have recognized that there's a barcode that says best before, and I don't know.
Well, for a country, essentially a tiny country out in the South Pacific, that in the general scheme of things is really a small country, as far as impact on global matters, she really was a force that the elites pumped up. And in this, you have to remember that she was the one who closed down the entire country because they had one case of COVID, and they shut the place down. I mean, there were excesses there that would pale by comparison to what went on in other countries like this one, or the UK, or China, or what have you. But it was quite a surprise that all of a sudden she says, "No, I'm out of here." And then going back to linking some dots here, the WEF was very, very, very careful not to go into the COVID business again or talk about it. And they were really attracting all second stringers, because when the G7, only the German chancellor showed up for these meetings for this unelected bunch of elites in their 900 airplanes that flew in and what have you. Like you say, there was this particular group seems to be flailing now and throwing out all kinds of nonsense, and seeing how far the population's been dumbed down to buy into some of this stuff. And they're not paying attention to I think the static in the background noise, which is the economy failing around the world, social unrest around the world, poverty growing by leaps and bounds around the world, 900 million so-called migrants on the move. That's the UN's number. That's a conservative one. That's a lot of folks who want to go someplace else.
Basically, one in 1/8 the population of the world is that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
sorry.
to tie that into with the the no borders and no one is illegal, and what place is going to be able to absorb 1 billion people? It's mind-boggling. We're already talking here in Canada where they're talking increasing the immigration numbers substantially, and it hasn't really hit a backlash, but there are a lot of people saying, I don't know if we can take that many in. I don't know if our culture or
the question is, who's we? Because the we is something that is not being talked about. That none of the countries that are involved in this gerrymandering of borders, I don't know what else to call it, ever go and ask the population what they think. They just decide to go and do it because, no, it's a third rail. You don't touch that one because you get zapped. And so they're messing about things that at this moment in time is not a good idea. For example, I don't understand the dichotomy here between what we talked earlier about these 15-minute cities are always going to be within a small a radius, because that's how we're going to save the planet. But it seems to me they have no problem, going off to war halfway around the world. Like, so where does that come in? I mean, did anybody say that, gee, maybe Russia and Ukraine should be turned into 15-minute cities out of place, because that would stop them from leaving, shooting each other up? I mean, that's the absurdity of this. When you extrapolate it outside of the real world, are these people drinking too much fluoridated water? What goes on with their
Well, I guess it goes back
brains?
in the esoteric and the ideals, and are we trying to get back into Eden again? It's nice to think about. Ideally, would be nice to have. Practically,
Well, to go back to Eden would mean that you have some sort of spiritual or religious link to the past. And these people are all secularists. They talk about utopia as opposed to Eden. There's a difference in their mindset here.
oh, absolutely. And I don't mean Eden.
No, I know, but you see,
place to strive to live to, where there is no good, there is no bad, there is no evil, there is no poverty, there is no hunger.
That'd be great, except that there is no such thing. Simple. Never was, never will be. It's library shelves are full of books with stuff like that, but it never, it's right up there with the prognostications of the past 200 years of various folks who said this is what we're going to be doing 50 years from now. When I was a kid in school, like you, we were reading about flying cars. We don't have flying cars, as an example. Okay.
Well, I remember the cartoon, the Jetsons. We were all supposed to be living in flying cars and cities that were up in the sky. And
yeah, well, now that's not to say some of the stuff in the Jetsons didn't happen. Cell phones right out of the Jetsons.
We have Skype. We have
you and I talking right now, on the screen. Look at the Jetsons. That's what they did. George Jetson worked from home. Jane did aerobics in front of a screen.
Hence Peloton.
So these things in some ways came to pass. But no, really, since the last time we spoke, like, there's been so much of this, like you say, stuff that came out of nowhere and tossed out. Like, the classic one for me was the business about the gas stoves. And very quickly the folks that thought this was a good idea, and again, you're right, they threw it out. Let's see what happens. Let's see how dumb the population really is that we can con. And the reaction, I don't think they really grasp how quickly people's go, come on, now this is really stupid. Never mind the industries that are involved, from the restaurant industry downward. And what I found particularly galling now is the folks who threw this out are now saying that, well, they didn't say that. This is all made up.
I was misspoken. Or was I misspoken? One or the other.
I was misquoted. It's misinformation. I mean, and you go, come on, really? So now the battle, of course, is all about getting the hearts and minds of people through social media on, you name the subject, we're getting inundated. I mean, look, you and I are doing this because we have the technology to do this. 100 years from now, if someone watches this, because what we do here will be recorded forever somewhere. And 100 years from now, some guy in his George Jetson, going around orbit Mars or something, is going to be looking at this. What the hell were these guys talking about?
Yeah, and it's going to go back to that. My goodness, we're flying in cars now. Why didn't they think about that, or why didn't they do that, or maybe it's because
or maybe they were up. What were they thinking about? You know?
yeah, they were too busy looking at their inner navels to try and figure out the bigger picture. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Anyhow,
and yeah,
this was the 2 weeks hiatus that really, this has been a very weird 2 weeks on so many levels that it's
mhm.
the
Well, and I think we did hit on that we should be looking at more positives. We don't want to do the doom and gloom all the time, but
no, but I don't. I actually tried to find some good news stuff to pontificate about, and I haven't found anything in the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks just has not been a good starter for anything. The tragedy in Ukraine continues on unabated. The warmongers are at it full tilt. Sorry if I sound a little cynical about that particular business. The economy is what gets me is that they're saying everything when a politician tells you everything is okay, don't worry, you better start worrying. Exactly. And they're going on, oh no, everything is fine. When if you and I ran our checkbook or our household finances the way the governments of Europe and North America, we'd be out. No wonder there's so many homeless people out there. That's a test pilot project here.
Yeah. Well, that's right. We
Because
just came.
the government was like a homeless person, the government would be out in the street.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it goes back to there's a big disdain for political people. I won't just say in any particular place. To me, it seems to be all over the place, and they're narcissistic personalities. I don't know why aren't you liking me? I'm the chief. I'm the head honcho. I'm the big fromage. But we're really not getting the people in there that can lead, that can inspire people. Go back to John Kennedy. He inspired quite a lot of people. I don't know if we've got any more people like that in the background that can do that.
Well, not in the current stable, but if we're going to be optimistic, I think those individuals exist. They just have to feel comfortable enough to come out and find the general population in various jurisdictions and countries that'll support positive things that benefit most of the people, not just some of the people. And you can't keep harping on the injustices of the past against people who had nothing to do with it of the present. And that's part of the screwy mentality that we have going on with our leadership.
The fact that if you or I decided to get into politics, we better have a pretty squeaky clean background. I joke.
But no one would believe you anyway. I mean, nobody has a squeaky. Nobody. Everybody has some, level of larceny, and the human beings are just like that. But whether it's this much or enough to fill a house is different.
My hobby is genealogy, and if I ever hit a brick wall that I really can't break down, then I'll put my name in for a political office, because I'm sure they will be able to find something about a sheep stealing ancestor.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. But listen, we only have a couple of minutes left. Can I throw out a thing here to our viewers and our listeners about joining us with their ideas and their comments? Yeah. On if you're watching us on YouTube, there's a like thing, a like icon, and you can subscribe. And I know we've got viewers and listeners because the numbers are up there. And you can also see us on our website and Facebook. All those social media channels basically have this podcast on it.
And certainly one step further, we've got an email address. We certainly respond to kudos, criticisms,
That, and give us some ideas on what you'd
Direction.
like us to talk about, number one. Number two, give us some ideas on how you think we should proceed with our future endeavors with our, apart from the virtual stuff, but our workshops and our forums that we're really trying to rejuvenate here for 2023, which is 20 years now. In March, it'll be 20 years that BORDERPOL was founded. And we're looking at ways to celebrate that. And we'd like the input of the folks who are watching and listening.
Well, yeah, as I say, plus comments, negative comments, we're not afraid of them, I don't think. We'll certainly respond to them.
Exactly. And for our next broadcast, we'll focus on this. We'll do some research on this 15 minute, town concept, which is really interesting in terms of borders. Like these are now different kinds of borders, not just the traditional, there's an immigration and customs guy there, but this is where some strange machinery is going to keep you from leaving your town.
It will be interesting, and I'll be interesting to look into that because I've not heard of that. So,
okay, well, this is our homework for our next meeting. Anyway, take care of yourself out there.
And you do, and have a wonderful end of the month celebration. And we look forward to hearing from you and seeing from you.
Likewise. All right, later.